Hello, everyone. My name is Quazi Saimoon Islam, but as you can see, Moon is in my name, so I'm probably the best person to talk about how, hopefully, in the future, I can help get Estonian footprints on the surface of the Moon. I am really sorry that I have to do this in English and not in Estonian, but if I tried to do it in Estonian, we'd be here till next week, so I think it's better if I do it in English, and next time I come, I'll prepare better and then do it in Estonian. I'm a doctoral student at Tartu Observatory. I'm in my fourth year of PhD study. I'm also a co-founder of MTÜ KuupKulgur, which we started in January 2023. I'm currently, just to add a bit more information, I recently also got a project with the European Space Agency to develop a synthetic data generating tool, for which I'm a principal investigator. And apart from all of this, most of my work is also doing really cool science with game engines. So if you are interested in game stuff, there is obviously a lot of potential of doing good things with them as well. But over the past 6 years, I've also contributed to many different projects at Tartu Observatory, including building cameras, doing satellites like S-Cube-2, as well as working on other projects that we've delivered on the terrestrial level with Millennium Robotics. This is me today. This is me before I came to Tartu. Look how young I look, and I had so much more hair. That's my life partner and now wife, Isha. I was born in I was born in Dhaka, Bangladesh. And how many of you know where Bangladesh is? Can I get a show of hands? It's fine. For the ones who didn't raise their hands, people from Bangladesh don't also know where Estonia is, so it's fine. But just to give a bit of context, it's a bigger city. It's about twice the size of Tallinn. But when I was growing up, there were about 13 million people in Bangladesh, so quite a lot of people. So when I was going to high school, each of our classrooms was filled with 60 students, so it was very difficult to kind of stand out. And at a young age, I was very fascinated by space. I would watch a lot of documentaries, and I wanted to know more and more about space, and actually wanted to study astrophysics. But both my parents and my teachers kept telling me that, oh, there is no point of doing it, you're not smart enough. It's for people way above. So when I completed my high school studies in Bangladesh, my parents wanted me to study business or accounting. I wanted to still do something with the sciences, so I made a compromise agreement with my dad that, okay, let me go study engineering at least. And he agreed, so I moved to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, which was my first move outside of Bangladesh. I studied there for 5 years, did my bachelor's in mechatronics engineering. It was quite an interesting experience. If you've ever visited Malaysia, there's a lot of cultural mix there. It's a very interesting place to go and live. And I learned a lot there. I would say that I grew up quite fast through this experience of doing bachelor's there. Right after I finished my bachelor's in Malaysia, I moved back to Bangladesh just to support the family and be closer to them. And I got a job at a company called Zcom Equipment. I was an electrical and instrumentation engineer there, where the company was building gas processing plants. So there was a lot of really strenuous work. Like I had to go to plants where they were processing gas that comes out of the ground into the pipelines, and I was doing the electrical and instrumentation there. But one thing I will say, the 3 years I worked there, I learned a lot, but it was also very dangerous work. So you had to climb really high towers without any safety because it's Bangladesh. You had really strict deadlines, so you had to work like almost 48 hours straight in the middle of nowhere with no other communication. But that was an interesting thing because I learned how to do really a lot of hard work. And although there was pressure, I learned how to be persistent. And this is a key word that probably flows through the rest of the things that I'm saying. I learned how to be persistent through everything, that if you put enough time and effort into something, you can achieve the goal. But at the end of, while I was still working at this place and trying to grow into this company structure, there was something missing in my heart. And that was the fact that I was still fascinated with space and I felt incomplete. And my life partner and wife then told me that, well, why would you let anyone else tell you what you can and can't do? Just if you want to do something in space, try it and go for it. So I sat behind a computer, started Googling, and then I found Tartu. I came across the University of Tartu through a Google search when I was looking for master's program because I had a bachelor's degree only, and I thought it would be cool to have a master's program degree. After I found Tartu, I saw that there's something called S-Cube. I was curious. I Googled it more, so I saw some videos, learned about it, and I found it absolutely amazing that students can build a satellite and actually send it to space. That was just mind-blowing to me. So I bit the bullet. I applied for the robotics and computer engineering masters here in 2018, got accepted, and right after that, there was a lot of personal things I was going through, but I still made it here in Tartu. I wasn't sure what to expect because before I came to Tartu, I had never been outside of Asia. So it was like, how do I mix with the culture there? But as soon as I landed and took the bus and I was looking at the beautiful roads and the beautiful trees and the houses, I was like, yes, this is the place I want to be, because all my life I've lived in big cities. I just love Tartu for how small and tightly knit it is. I can walk down the streets, run into someone, say hi to them, and then we end up having dinner for the next few hours. And I just love that about Tartu. A week after that, I joined the S-Cube 2 team, which was, again, a very amazing thing for me, because here's this project I was fascinated with for a few months when I was searching for master's program, and I came and immediately joined the team, and I started working on the Star Tracker project. The first semester was a bit difficult. I was a tuition fee paying student, so financially I was kind of under a lot of strain. I spent my first year in the Ratuse 22 dorm, right around the corner. It was cool because I came into a new continent in a new country, and I was stuck in a small dorm with 6 guys. But that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because it got me out of my shell. I had a really good roommate called Juan. He's from Panama. He's really funny and snores very loudly, but we're still great friends today. I really loved, when I started going to the classes, I loved the educational culture here, because compared to Asia, it was very different. It was very empowering. Like, I was never told what I can't do. I was always told, if you think this is a good idea, try it first. And when you get stuck, you come to the teachers and lectures. And I really loved that, and it helped me excel. And I experienced my first snowfall. So you can see this is literally the picture. Me and Juan were like little children, because neither of us had seen snow before. So when snow started falling, we went in our bare feet outside and then realized, oh, wait, snow is cold. This is a bad idea. I became very deeply connected to the S-Cube 2 team, working on the Star Tracker subsystem. At the end, at the end of my master's, I was actually leading the development of the whole subsystem, which was amazing again. I attended many events in Estonia, so the 6 dorm mates, they would always take me out. We would cook together in the dorms, and then we would go out. And I even attended a lot of cultural events at the museum, because I just wanted to know more about Estonia. My character is like, if I'm in a community, it was the same in Malaysia. I want to learn more about the history and the language and the people, because I want to get to know you guys. After all, we're all people, right? My first steps in Tartu Observatory began at the end of my master's, where I did an internship over the summer, where I learned a lot during this internship and met some really cool people. Some of them I'm still friends with. Some of them have moved on to different things. You might recognize Raid from Racket 69. I did the internship with him. And that is also when I met my eventual supervisor, Dr. Mikkel Pajusalu, who is a great inspiration to me even today. And he's my doctoral thesis supervisor too. And at that point, when the Tartu Observatory is outside Taravere, we have to take a bus 20 minutes out. But just the place and the eventual environment attracted me so much that this is where I'm meant to work for the rest of my life, maybe. Fingers crossed. I really devoted a lot of my energy into trying to help everything to do with the observatory. And that's where I started working on my master's thesis. And now I become a teacher, so I'll tell you what visual odometry is. So I did my master's thesis on visual odometry. Imagine that we have different a single camera moving around an environment. How do we navigate? Or if you as people, how do you know where you are sitting in your environment? You look around, you see different things, and then you kind of have an estimate automatically calculated in your brain where you are in your 3D space, right? Visual navigation, visual odometry is doing the same. So if you have two pictures like this, we can detect mathematically some features here. They look kind of the same, right? But then if I try to match these features together, I see that they actually have moved between the frames. And the idea of visual odometry is that if we track these movements, we can actually recreate how the camera is moving in its environment. And essentially the work that I try to do is give robots and rovers eyes that they can use to actually understand how they're moving in their environment. And I was totally blown away by the idea. It's not a new idea, it's a very old idea, but I was more inspired by how we can make it better, more efficient, faster, how we can basically make robots smarter for the future. I defended my thesis in June 2020. Yes, I am a pandemic graduate, so it was really, really tough. Oh yeah, I went too fast. I received my master's degree with cum laude as well from Tartu Observatooriumis, which was kind of surprising because when I was in high school and bachelor's, I wasn't the best of students. So you can see that I really liked the educational system in Europe. And I was motivated to go further. And after speaking to Dr. Mikkel Pajusalu, he suggested that I can take these ideas that I've implemented in my master's and do a doctoral degree on it. So I started working on my PhD. I submitted a proposal which got accepted, thankfully. It's called Visual Methods for Planetary Surface Navigation. And the idea is that when you send a rover to an extraterrestrial surface, like the moon or Mars, they only have their own instruments to depend on. They don't have that much human capability to drive around. We can't use a joystick to drive it around, so we need to make them more self-aware, more autonomous, and give them better capability to protect themselves from the environment they're in. And my job is to use terrestrial knowledge that we have from like Tesla cars, how they use visual odometry or some machine learning approaches, and implement that on extraterrestrial cases. There are different challenges that I tackle. Maybe I can talk about it at some other day. But my first year of PhD study kind of focused around the Nutikas Metsa robot project, which is a project we did with Milram Robotics. You see a render there, but the idea is a robotic forester. And for the whole year, I essentially developed the visual odometry system for them. I can't talk about it too much because NDAs, but one thing I will mention that my first year of PhD was during the pandemic, like the height of the pandemic. So it was a really difficult time that you jump into PhD, and then lots of different things happened. And it was probably the toughest period of my time in Tartu. And I think part of it was also because I was locked in. I wasn't able to, let's say, share my time with the community here. It made things quite difficult. And I also had to scale back my involvement in S-Cube a little bit because PhD and then the Nutikas project took a lot of time. But after the pandemic ended, one of the first major projects that, let's say, propelled me towards the lunar surface was this ESA project that we did, where I basically helped spearhead the development of this mission planning tool that we built for them. So essentially on the moon, you can put down points on this map that is from lunar remote sense data, and our tool would spit out a path that the rover should follow. And this was a relatively short project, only a year long, so there was a lot of really tight deadlines, a lot of sleepless nights. We had to figure out how to deliver the tool on time, but also make it make sense. Although it's a proof of concept, ESA was very happy with what we delivered at the end, because currently what we learned also from this project is that mission planning in ESA is done by hand. So a bunch of old scientists go into one room with a lot of coffee, and then they bicker for a week, and then they come up with a trajectory like our tool spits out. So doing it automatically saves them a lot of time, a lot of money. But there was a question, like, yes, our tool spits out a path, but how do we know it's accurate, right? How do we know a rover can actually traverse this? And while we were gaming one night with my colleagues, we thought like, hey, why don't we just put the same map and the same path into our game engine, put a virtual rover there, and tell it to drive at the same times and see that whether the rover is encountering a shadow, whether it can keep charge, whether it slides off a crater, and that helps us validate whether the path planning tool makes sense. And that's where Ulysses, which is our simulation environment, was born. It's built using Unreal Engine 5 because it just came out and I just wanted to try it. I needed an excuse to try it, so we used the project to do this. But it worked out really well because ESA was very happy with the validation we did. They were also very excited about the potential of using game engines for this kind of applications. And it also helped us improve our path planning tool because we could learn from the validation and improve how the software that actually helps plan out these paths. Then came the other idea of, because Unreal Engine 5 is very famous for having very photorealistic images, right? So here I have two images. One is from the Apollo 15 mission, and one is from our simulation environment. We just put the sun in the same place in the simulation environment. The shadows look quite similar, right? Like it looks quite cool. If you remember the previous example of visual odometry, I can also do feature detection on both. And if I match it, I can actually find good matches between the two. That means to a computer, there is no difference from the image on the left and the image on the right. And that opens a huge opportunity for us, that because we haven't been on the moon yet for a while, since the 70s, we don't have a lot of data that we can use for algorithm training or machine learning. We can actually use synthetic data to train all these new cool terrestrial applications that we built. And hopefully that helps us in the future when we have actual rovers driving around on the moon. So we came up with the idea for the synthetic data generator. We also came up with the idea that, hey, we can do the same thing with orbital data for satellites, which will help us design how satellites should point their cameras to get the best resolution out of them. And for this, then I came up with this basically whole framework where we can use the same engine to load in remote sensing data, put in really accurate lighting of the sun, because we can predict the future as well with this, because it's just mathematics. We can dress up the surface nicely because we don't know everything about the surface. We'll have to put rocks and stuff on there, which we can do in the game engine. We can put a virtual rover back in, and we can actually get many different types of synthetic data, not just pretty pictures, but we can get bounding boxes where we can train machine learning models to detect rocks or hazards and everything. So I took this idea, I submitted it to ESA, and then I got the OSIP that I talked about, which is a co-funded research project. And this is the overall framework that we've developed for Ulysses, that it is not just a simulation game, but it has many different functions, and they're interchangeable. So we can essentially do mission planning in the same tool, as well as collect synthetic data, do mission simulations, do rover digital twins, and so on and so forth. And all of this kind of fit in really nicely with the Artemis program. If you guys have ever heard of it, but the Artemis program is basically all the world's big agencies, NASA, ESA, JAXA, getting together to try to go back to the moon and build a lasting presence there. So moon bases, so that we can have a pit stop, essentially, before we go to Mars. And we want to, as Estonia, as a nation, we recently signed the Artemis Accords. We want to contribute to it. So one thing that we saw that is needed if you want to build any moon bases or any future on the moon is that you're going to need lots of different kinds of autonomous rovers and robotic systems to build or do any science that you want to do on the moon. And it doesn't matter what kind of shapes they are. They can be really small or really big. And if I have done a good job at explaining, we have been doing a lot of these kind of robotic applications. And then when I was sitting together with my supervisor and my colleagues who helped me found KuupKulgur, we realized that, hey, we actually have the technical competencies to build our own rover. So we did. And that's where KuupKulgur was born. The idea is quite simple. We are merging our competencies with CubeSats. So we take a CubeSat module where companies can put their CubeSat, their instruments in there. As long as it's in a CubeSat form factor, we can interface it. Our responsibility is the platform. and the charging and the solar panel, and basically making sure that your instrument can run. And that way the company doesn't have to worry about how they're going to send their instrument to the moon. We can be the delivery service, and from our side we get the ability to do research and science on how to make them autonomous. At the middle of last year, we developed this cute little rover. Look how cute it is. And then tested it out. At the end of last year, we made it better, made it stronger, more steampunk. And now we actually have a platform where we are actually testing payloads. So we provide a service to different companies where they can put their instruments in different configurations, and then they can test it out. We also use the simulation environment to design the rover. So it's not just us sitting together and drawing it out. We actually test it in simulations first. And then when we think that, okay, it makes sense, we put it in the actual rover. So it's a digital twin design philosophy. We also have test facilities. Fun fact, all the sand in this bunker that you see, I have shoveled it. We have a small, if some of you visited Tõrevere during the public evenings or whatever, we have an underground bunker where we basically have a small lunar analog facility like this, where we can drive around our rover, we can gather data, and we can basically recreate the lunar surface as best we can on Earth. And if you remember the visual odometry as my main focus of my PhD as well, I've been able to expand my work here too. So I get to do it both in simulation by generating synthetic data and then test it out on actual rover moving around in the bunker. So this project has been quite good for my PhD as well. It's given me a lot of platform to how to improve. The KuupKulgur project itself, of course, we want to go to the moon, right? But Estonia doesn't really have a lot of heritage in sending something to the moon yet, so it will probably take time to convince the related parties and get the money. But in the meantime, we try to provide the rover as a testing platform, as I've shown, and it helps us get more understanding of the technical competencies we need. And above all that is education. And the project itself has been really good at providing students a hands-on experience of working on a really difficult topic. And they have been doing theses with us. We are always open to high school students, even bachelor's, master's, whichever discipline. They come to us, we give them a platform to work hands-on with it. And that is kind of like my motivation to contribute to education as much as possible. I've been supervising a lot of bachelor's and master's students because I want to give back to Tartu what I have received in terms of the education I've received and the ability to show what I have. Other projects are OPIC and TEA. I know I'm out of time. I'm just going to quickly rush through this. That, as you can see, these are the main projects we have at the Space Tech Department. I'm kind of gotten my hands and mitts in a lot of them. Still have to get the Venus life in my reign of sphere of influence, but we'll get there. But just to quickly conclude, some of the challenges that I faced since coming to Tartu is obviously integrating into this new society and culture, but probably the biggest one has been being away from family. And I've been here 6 years now. I mentioned that pandemic was a really difficult time. I actually lost both my mother and my mother-in-law during that time while being away and not being able to travel back. Being uncertain about the futures. When you start a PhD, yes, you're doing it, but then you don't know where it's going to lead you. I've shown you all the good stuff, but doesn't mean that I have not failed along the way. There have been times when I failed at doing so many things that I've just wanted to give up and cry and not do it. But the key word I just wanted to, I hope it resonates with you, is you don't need to be the smartest in the room. Like, if you remember, my school teacher said I'm not smart enough. Maybe I'm not smart enough, but I am persistent. And I'm going to keep hacking away at it until I get it done. So be persistent in your life. Don't just let anyone tell you what you can and can't do, but be persistent. And surround yourself with good people, because good people bring good things. And if you can't find good people, be good to everyone. Because that you being good to everyone will make them change their hearts, and kindness is very important. And speaking of good people, these are all the good people at the Space Tech Department which have made me feel at home in Tartu. We do, they're my family here, apart from the family that I have at home in Bangladesh. And with that, I just want to end by saying, Lahmekos kuule. Aitäh.
Aitäh sulle ja tuletan kõigile meelde, et küsimusi saab küsida Mentimeetri kaudu, nii et kellel on küsimusi, võtke Mentimeeter julgelt lahti ja ma nad ka siin ette kannan. Aga me võime senikaua tagasi panna selle family picture. Let's return to the family picture and I will ask one question.
I don't think I can change it.
Yeah, right now. Maybe technical team can switch to the...
Yes.
Okay. Family is the next one, I suppose.
Yes, it's the... Yeah.
No. Family like the family you had in Tõravere.
Yes,
that's one.
Yes.
That one. You talked about persistence. Mm-hmm. Do you know what's the secret behind Dr. Mihkel Pajusalu?
He works a lot.
Yeah, but the thing you don't know about him is that he's my course mate. I did the bachelor together, so I have the same physics lesson that he had. And the thing is that he made the bachelor work out of spectroscopy, which is a study of light and colors. But the strange thing is that Mihkel is colorblind. Yeah. He hasn't seen a single color in his life, but he still managed to make a bachelor's degree out of colors. Yeah. So that's persistence. So yeah, that was a fun fact. But my question to you is that you arrived from totally different culture. What do you think is undervaluated here in terms of education? So undervaluated, I mean that we don't think it's valuable, we just let it be, and you see like that why aren't you grabbing this?
I would say maybe not undervalued, but maybe a little underappreciated is the fact that there's so much freedom when you're studying here compared to where I came from. We were the school system in Asia and in Bangladesh is very restrictive. You kind of sometimes just in some courses, you just have to memorize things to pass. You don't need to understand it. But I've seen even in high schools as well as in the university that it is more about understanding and expressing your ideas in whatever you're trying to learn that helps you get, let's say, the grades that you need. And I feel like that should be appreciated a little bit more. And the fact that you have programs like Teadusmalev, where over the summer you actually get to work with scientists and actual people working in the industry. This is something that you actually don't have in most countries. And I feel like those kind of opportunities are great. And every student, I always tell them whenever I go to schools that make use of that. Like whenever you have an opportunity for a summer school or just going somewhere to get a hands-on experience, do it, because not everyone gets this opportunity.
So grab the chance to meet with the good people.
Yes.
Yep. And I must say, I just found the other familiar face from there too. It turns out that I've been accompanied by the doctors, and that's why maybe I haven't had this doctor's degree. Aire is also my course mate, so yeah, they're all doctors, but not me. Sad. But there is one question. Mm-hmm. What are the key points to manage with new environment? Is it a new country or even on new continent? What are the key points?
I think you have to be very open. And by open, I mean I've also met people from my country who come here and they expect people to kind of accept the Bangladeshi culture, which is always, it's a thing that people kind of have. Like if you go from Estonia to Australia, you think like, oh, people should understand my culture, but it is important to be flexible and open. So if you go somewhere, you need to accept that you are in a different environment. And you need to kind of bend yourself backwards or morph yourself a little bit more to things that are uncomfortable for you, just to be able to fit in that culture. So I found it very difficult. Like, before I came to Estonia as well, I did my research, and then the point that was like Estonians are very stoic and quiet people. So when I first came here, I was very stoic and quiet. But then slowly, as I got to know my friends and everyone in this community, I realized that that's not the case. It's just we need time to get to know each other. And then I started becoming really, really loud. And now I'm the loudest person at the observatory. But that has made everyone else at the observatory very loud. So in one way, I've integrated my culture in. but I've also had to kind of bend myself to first integrate here first. So
That's great. I look whether there is more questions, but it turns out that nope.
okay, so I did either a great or a terrible job.
You did a great job, but I will ask one question
Yeah.
more, and it would be that in terms of there are a lot of youngsters here, and at the beginning we heard some stories how people, when they're young, they don't know what they want to do or who they want to become.
Yeah.
What is your advice to them, or what do you suggest to them that who doesn't know what to do or what to learn? What do you suggest?
I will give the same advice I've given to one of the students that came to us at teadusmaailm, and she was very, very confused. Like, does she want to do chemistry, biology, science, go to medical or whatever? I would say try out different things, but find that one thing that makes you stay awake at night, because that is the thing that you'll be most passionate about. And it may not come immediately. It may be something very simple. Like I said, I used to play games just like probably all of you do, and I used to stay up at night, and my dad would get really, really mad. But I've found a way to do a career around it somehow. So there's always ways where you can find a spot for that one thing that you're passionate about, but don't lose it. Keep that in mind, keep that in your heart. And even if you have to go the long way around like I did, I'm not very young, it will happen. If you are persistent enough and if you're willing to take the risks, it will happen. But try to find the one thing that makes you tick, that just gets it going in your head.
And now I've got one more unofficial question. What was the game?
The game?
Yeah, which you played.
When I was very young, I used to play a lot of Prince of Persia.
So, thank you.
Yeah,
Let's have applause.